Welcome to the Courting Happiness podcast. This is a place where self-care becomes part of your day. A space where you'll learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter, turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare of suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness, and my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The courting happiness is a true courtship, I like to say, commitment with happiness. The K in courting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You'll learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 14. I can't even believe it. Episode 14. Happy New Year. This is so unbelievable. It's a time of the year where we really kind of think back and move forward to a new year and really new beginnings. You might even start writing about what, your goals, or better yet, your New Year's resolutions. So today what we're going to do is kind of be your resolution solution, hacking New Year's resolutions to kickstart your 2021. If you're working on your New Year's resolution, you're not alone. Many of us will. I'm one of them. But more than 80% of us will make a resolution and ultimately fail. That's what science says. This is what research has found. So how can we be successful in making sure we make it happen, right? That we accomplish these goals that we, have organized, set out, and begin to really process. Well, according to Benjamin Sanchez, he is an attorney, and he also was working on his success rate in terms of his New Year's resolutions. And he shared his tips in an article called Keeping Resolutions Going. Now, I'm going to share some of these tips that he has shared. And I really think his tips are really phenomenal for us to think about, especially during the new year. But to be honest with you, this is something we should think about all year round. But what I love is that Sanchez really allows us to think about what that looks like, right? In terms of the dynamic of setting our New Year's resolutions and making sure we're working toward this year-round goal. So the first step, he says, is be specific in goal setting. So Sanchez says this, quote, failure often comes because our goals are either too big or too general. Have you been there before, right? Thinking about creating goals that may be too big or way too general. He recommends breaking down your goals into smaller goals. It's easier to assess our goals when they're smaller. I also see it as giving ourselves small wins along the way that we can kind of celebrate in a big way when we're trying to really reach these goals. So, for example, if weight loss is a part of your New Year's resolution, so let's say if you said weight loss, I want to lose weight. Well, that goal is broad. But if you say, my goal is to lose 30 pounds, Sanchez would argue this. It's still broad. He actually has cultivated this question. How do we analyze our progress against a general goal? So he says this. we end up telling ourselves that even though we haven't started exercising and changing our diet as of March, we're okay because our goal isn't measured until the end of the year. So creating a date is important, right? Then also, he recommends this, breaking it down into action items. An action item would be, I'm going to go to strength training once or twice a week, right? To help reach that goal of weight loss of what? 30 pounds. Another goal may be I'm going to jog 3 days out of the week, or I'm going to jump rope 4 times out of the week. You get the idea, right? Another goal can be I'm going to eat a certain amount of vegetables every day. Sanchez says that these goals are manageable. And another would be, in this case, right? Being a part of the Courting Happiness podcast and community, you might be thinking about what that looks like in terms of your well being. All of this can help serve you in terms of crafting goals, right? That are manageable. And I love the idea of being really specific and really just narrowing it down. Second, he says, be accountable to others. I love this. I love this goal a lot. And so Sanchez says, quote, although it's nice to say that we take on personal accountability, we easily let ourselves down because no one else knows we have given up or failed. So when you share your goal with someone, you are then really allowing someone to be a part of the process. And that person's going to hold you accountable too. Like, wait, didn't you say this? So this year, decide on who will serve as your accountability partner. By the way, in this podcast, of course, many of you know, and for those of you who are new to this podcast, welcome. So happy that you're here. We talk about positive relationships and the creation of what I like to call our self-care squad. These are people who are a part of our lives, that we are a part of this great, amazing circle of really helping to serve our well-being. They hold us accountable as relates to our well-being. So this is what I love. This is a great way to incorporate this element in terms of your self-care squad while serving as accountability partners as it relates to not only just a generality, right? But then also getting you more specific in terms of all of these goals, in terms of your New Year's resolutions, and then also making sure you're maintaining your goals and your well-being as relates to that. The truth is that when our goals live beyond us, it kind of heightens the level of responsibility as it relates to the goal. Think about it. For example, when I was a professor at a college in Georgia, I remember saying to myself, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a podcast. I knew the name that we have here today, Courting Happiness. I'm going to start a podcast, I said to myself. Well, the interesting part is that life got in the way, or maybe because I said it to myself, right? And then 3 years kind of went past. And I'm like, wow, I said that. Yeah, wow, I'm going to start a podcast. But I remember the second or the third year, I decided to share that goal. So I told my fiance, and this is the beautiful part of sharing your goal. Well, last Christmas, he surprised me with a beautiful podcast microphone. And that year, I will tell you, after I got that podcast microphone, I ended up launching 2 podcasts. One with my research partner and friend, and this one, the one that you're listening to right now. So I'm actually talking with you right now on that beautiful microphone. that he purchased for me. But sharing it, right, helped. So, but if I had kept it to myself, like I did the first year or so when I was at the other university, and I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a podcast. I didn't share. I didn't even share it with my colleagues at the time. I was like, going to start a podcast. But when I decided to share it, then it allowed my fiance to really be a cheerleader and an accountability partner, saying, hey, I'm here to support you. And he showed it by this, beautiful microphone that I'm actually speaking to you right now, leveraging um and utilizing and in so many different ways, from this podcast to multiple projects. So sharing it really helped heighten that level of responsibility of making it a reality. So sharing it with your partner, your loved ones, your self-care squad can really serve you. You can also find great accountability partners online in Facebook groups. I'm a part of, different groups on Facebook. I love seeing the level of positive community within these groups, with people sharing, certain, uh, certain subject matters, or maybe it might be core values or interest, right? And they're, coming together in community. And I love Facebook groups that always have the rules of making sure people understand that this is a positive community and we're here to help each other. So Facebook or social media can be a great place to build relationships also as relates to accountability partners. And you might be a part of some communities or membership sites that will say, hey, you want an accountability partner? Right. And so great opportunity to partner with someone who's going to hold you accountable. And not only who's going to hold you accountable, like I shared as related to my fiance, Ken, it's not simply the fact that, oh, yeah, hey, don't forget, you mentioned that podcast, but it was someone cheering me on who believes in me too. Notice I said believes in me too, right? Because it all comes down to self, me believing, and then also what's so beautiful is the fact that he believes in me too. And he's cheering me on and holding me accountable, but cheering me cheering me along. And while I am taking every step to make this a reality. So think about that. If you haven't done it before in terms of your New Year's resolution goals, or your New Year's resolution, I should say, find an accountability partner. And if you've already cultivated your self-care squad, hey, have a virtual meeting with your self-care squad and say, hey, this is what we're going to do differently in 2021. We're going to share some of these New Year's resolutions that we have, and we're going to hold each other accountable. And then you're going to check in with each other along the way, right? That's so powerful. But what's so great is that level of support, those positive relationships. And positive relationships help increase our well-being. So it's really a win-win. So the next step that Sanchez recommends is focus on the process. He mentions to enjoy the steps along the way. This is so important. When we're working to reach a goal, we think about, getting to the end. Let's accomplish it. Yes, right. Have you been there? Um, but we also need to value the steps, the journey. I remember when I was working on my PhD and a mentor shared with me, getting this degree is a marathon, not a race. And I was like, wow. It's like, wow, that's interesting. I'm like, and so what I love so much about hearing that is that I had to learn to value the process, to enjoy the journey of getting there, or the steps in terms of getting there, opposed to just focusing on the destination of getting it and accomplishing it and saying check, right? Like, oh, mission accomplished. But the interesting part, when I think back on that journey, I learned so much along the way that to this day I talk about. Good example is right now that I can share really that process with you. And so I love that he shared that. Focus on the process. So I'm going to end with this. This is the next step from Sanchez. And it speaks to this podcast. And it really speaks to the mission of our podcast too, which is be positive. Remember, having a positive mindset is important. Or really, I like to say optimistic, an optimistic mindset. Martin Seligman. Dr. Martin Seligman is one of the founders of positive psychology. Dr. Seligman says this: optimism generates hope, hope releases dreams, dreams set goals, enthusiasm follows. It's powerful. How we see things are important, but also how we nurture ourselves and our well being along the way is so important. It allows us to have a proactive strategy, really, in terms of creating a strategy. So, really, a proactive approach to creating a strategy in terms of thinking about positive activities to help in terms of increasing our positive emotions. I want you to think about all of these elements, things that you need to not simply accomplish your goals, but to lift you along the way while you're working to achieve them. One of the goals of the Courting Happiness podcast for 2021 is giving more tools to help you with your well-being and your happiness journey. I'm looking forward to more announcements of what's to come. I'm really excited about some great announcements. Not ready to share them yet, but I will share them soon. And also some incredible people that will be joining me. I'm looking forward to having these discussions with them. These are scholars, thought leaders, and coaches that will help you flourish. And before we officially end, honestly, I just want to say I am so thankful for all of you. I have been looking at how this podcast is growing within not only the United States, but around the world. We have now listeners from Russia and Germany and Saudi Arabia and India and New Zealand, just to name a few. And I am so grateful that you are here, that that you really value all the content that's being shared. And I'm just so really grateful that you're part of the community. I love that. I can't wait to meet all of you guys. That's one of the reasons why I love the fact of having the Facebook group, because it allows us to come together, and it allows you to really be strengthened by great positive relationships as you really begin your journey in terms of thinking about how am I going to be and how I'm going to continue to be more proactive as it relates to my well-being. I want to thank you again so much for supporting the podcast. Thank you for helping me make that dream come true of sharing more evidence-based strategies with the world and connecting you with phenomenal people, resources, and inspirational messages along the way. I want to end with a quote from Viktor Frankl. And he states this. I'm going to quote him. Everything you have in life can be taken from you except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. This is what determines the quality of the life we've lived, not whether we've been rich or poor, famous or unknown, healthy or suffering. What determines our quality of life is how we relate to these realities, what kind of meaning we assign them, what kind of attitude, right? What kind of attitude we cling to about them, and what state of mind we allow them to trigger. In 2021, I'm looking forward to you being a part of this podcast. I'm so grateful for being a part of your journey to help you navigate and continue to choose how you respond, choose how you commit, and choose how you will be proactive concerning your well being and increasing your levels of happiness. Guys, I am wishing you the happiest new year in 2021. May all your dreams, goals, intentions, aspirations, well, all of them just continue to come true. And let's continue this conversation online. Join the Courting Happiness podcast in Facebook. Don't forget, it's Courting with a K. Our private Facebook community is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. Are you ready to spread happiness? Subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Congratulations on your continued commitment to your courting happiness journey. We want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. We can't wait to see you next week.